All right, hi again. Welcome back. Attorney Steve Vondran here. We are talking in this video about First Amendment lawsuits. Okay, so here is a contemporary First Amendment lawsuit. This is filed by CNN versus Donald Trump, okay, and some of his cast of characters here. So if you're new to my show, this is going to be a great video about the First Amendment. If you've been watching the news, as we call the news, because you never know what's news anymore, a lot of times it's opinion. It's a lot of opinion that they want you to absorb as fact. Fact turns into news. But this one is about CNN. There was recently a press conference. I don't know if you saw it, but there was about 150 reporters in the room. Jim Acosta was there. The CNN, some people are calling him Jim Acosta. So there's all kinds. It's politics, right? We have to laugh. It's politics. We have to have a good time with it. Keep our sense of humor. We don't have to burn down buildings or anything to make our point. But this is a case that I found to be interesting. So there was 150 reporters at this press conference. Donald Trump was there, and Acosta was right in the front. So it was kind of like face to face. And Acosta, as he always does, he really doesn't really even ask questions. He really likes to just make his point of view, be controversial, put the defendant put the president on the opposition, and see what happens. That's my interpretation, which is fine. It's news. That's what we do. We get things going, so forth and so on. But in this instant, President Trump became upset. And he felt that he had answered the question, and he asked Acosta to knock it off, pass the microphone to the next person. And Acosta didn't want to give up that golden 15 minutes or the 5 minutes of glory, whatever it is. And the intern, one of the interns in the press conference, she came over to try to grab the microphone, and Acosta wouldn't give it to her. And there's a discrepancy over the video, but it looked like what I saw. Looked like he kind of was trying to push her arm away so that he could retain the microphone. And anyway, that's what this dispute is all about. CNN says no, that never happened. There was a doctored video being passed around. So eventually, what happened is, Trump, pulled his press credential, and he said, well, you've got, I think CNN has like 50 other people with press credentials, and he said, well, you can't come in. You're banned indefinitely. And so this lawsuit involves CNN, cable news network, suing Trump and others, as we can see right here. Cable news network from Atlanta, Georgia, and Abilio James Acosta, apparently in D.C., the plaintiffs suing Donald Trump, John F. Kelly, Chief of Staff, President of the United States, William Shine, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I'm not even quite sure why she's being sued, but Sarah Huckabee Sanders is being sued, and she's the press secretary. And the United States Secret Service is being sued. I think what happened is the Secret Service officer took his press pass, and that's what this is all about. So we're looking here. This is general information only. So we have here a complaint, as you can see, plaintiffs Cable News Network and Abilio James Jim Acosta for their complaint against Trump and others, blah, blah, blah. He's been a journalist for more than 2 decades, for more than 5 years. He's been the CNN national political correspondent, and so forth and so on. He has covered the White House since 2012, 2013. Those are the Obama years. Has possessed press credentials, often called a hard pass, that allows him in regular, unescorted access to the White House and White House briefings. So, in other words, he gets unescorted access and could literally come and go as he pleased. Pretty nice privilege. He is widely reputed as diligent and a thorough reporter for one of the nation's most respected and widely watched networks. There's a lot of people who think he's just a rebel rouser kind of guy. Anyway, I'll let you read this on your own accord. I'm going to go down to the, I'm just going to go down a little bit here in case you want to pause it and read all this. But I'm going to go down to the actual allegations which were made under the First Amendment. That's the freedom of speech, freedom of the press. And Fifth Amendment, he made a due process clause. In other words, saying you can't just strip my credential without due process of law. You have to give me that due process. And basically, they are seeking a preliminary injunction to return those press credentials. He wants to be back in good graces. And we're going to see what's going to happen here. So there's the pages if you want to pause them and read through them. Security clearances, this, that, and the other. I'm not going to go through all this. In case you want to read it, go for it. We have stuff here about since being elected, President Trump has continuously tweeted negative remarks about CNN. For example, on February 17, 2017, he stated that the fake news media, the failing New York Times, NBC News, ABC, CBS, CNN is not my enemy. It is the enemy of the American people. And so what Trump is referring to, which is often taken out of context, is that he believes fake news media, the ones that just make up, fake sources. Oh, sources tell us. Sources at the White House tell us. People that make up, sometimes they'll take a tweet from somebody and they'll turn it into like a big news story about somebody's tweet. Well, it's not, I guess that's news. It's somebody tweeting, but it's not really fact. And so what Trump is really getting at is fake news is the enemy of the people, So there needs to be some kind of push, I think, for media to be more fact-based, to cite their sources, to have more ethics, to be more fact-oriented, trying to find facts, report on facts, muckraking, what they used to call it way back when I was a kid and reading history, muckraking, finding out the abuses and exposing them. But it's become more of just beating each other up. And I'm not sure that's really good for our country. So that's my political speech, my civic duty for the day. But let's get down here to the, so you can read all this if you want to read all this. That's really the basics of what happened. I'm not going to go through all that. It's here if you want to read it, but I'm trying to get down to the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and let's see what it has to say here. You can pause that if you want. All right, there we go. First cause of action, violation of the First Amendment. So this is the first cause of action. Defendant's decision to revoke Acosta's press credentials violates the First Amendment. Freedom of speech, folks. Freedom of the press. Plaintiffs' access to the White House, their coverage of the November 7, 2018 press conference, and Acosta's questions to President Trump during that conference are and were all protected activities under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. Defendants have deprived plaintiff of their right to access the White House grounds. I'm not sure that's actually a right to access the White House grounds. I think that's a privilege, but who knows? Without those credentials, Acosta cannot access the White House and cannot effectively serve as a White House correspondent, thus depriving CNN of its chief White House correspondent. So, but as I said, I understand there's 50 others. So if Acosta is misbehaving, maybe it's time to bring in somebody new. But like I said, there is a dispute over whether he was actually hitting her arm and pushing it down, or whether he did nothing. I watched the tape live. I was actually watching it, and it looked like he had pushed her down, from what I could tell. Defendants initially claimed that they revoked Acosta's press pass because he placed his hands on an intern. That's what it looked like to me. The contention is not accurate, they allege. The president himself has stated that Acosta's conduct was not overly horrible, and that Acosta's credentials were actually suspended because he failed to treat the White House with respect. So we have some questions of fact. Why was his pass revoked? That'll be something they'll be talking about. DDD. And so as a result of defendants' actions, plaintiffs have suffered and continue to suffer irreparable harm. It's reparable harm. If they give him his press credential back, he'll be back in business. So anyway, second cause of action is violation of the Fifth Amendment. Defendant's decision to revoke Acosta's press credentials violate the Fifth Amendment right to due process. Plaintiffs have a protected liberty and property interest in Acosta's press credentials, and the access it affords to the White House. Now, I'm not sure if that's exactly true. A protected liberty and property interest in the press credentials. It would seem to me that there are grounds, there are things you can do to lose your rights and your privileges, I think, but we'll see. The credentials allow Acosta to access to his office in the White House and allow him to do his job effectively. Absent his credentials, he cannot serve as a White House correspondent. Well, he could, he just wouldn't have that nice cushy office to go to. Acosta received no direct notice from the White House that his credentials had been revoked, let alone any notice prior to the revocation. Instead, the White House announced that the revocation itself via Twitter after defendants had already decided to effectively ban Acosta from the White House grounds. So he's claiming there needs to be a due process, just like we had with Kavanaugh, saying there needs to be a due process, being accused of something, there needs to be a process that you go through. Acosta's arguing the same thing. You can't just revoke my credentials without telling me, without some kind of hearing, a process. So that'll be interesting. We'll see. But other than that, third cause of action, violations of the Administrative Procedure Act. Sounds pretty boring. I'm not going to read into that. Prayer for relief. What does he want? This is what Acosta and CNN want. Plaintiffs respectfully request the court enter the following forms of relief. A, immediate restoration of Acosta's press credentials and hard pass so that plaintiffs may continue to report from White House briefings and perform their jobs on the White House grounds and other presidential events. B, in the alternative, immediate restoration of Acosta's press credentials pending some sort of due process, including but not limited to a formal written explanation as to why the pass is being revoked. So they want a list of reasons. An opportunity for plaintiffs to respond to the allegations and to be heard before a neutral arbiter. Is there such thing as a neutral arbiter in politics? I think that's hard to find. And a final written decision. C, a declaration that the revocation of Acosta's press credentials was unconstitutional in violation of the First Amendment and the Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment. A declaration that the revocation of Acosta's press credentials violated the Administrative Procedures Act, and an order granting plaintiff their costs, fees, and disbursements incurred in connection with these proceedings. So there you have it. Jury trial demand. They want a jury to hear this in federal court. The firm here, interestingly, the firm is Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher. Big firm, giant firm out of LA, also with a DC office, as you can see here, New York office. Offices everywhere. Pro Hoc Vici forthcoming. So this is an attorney from New York, and Champion, that's a good name for a lawyer, is going to come in and ask for admission as a visiting attorney. So that will be interesting. So she must know something about First Amendment law, I would assume. But does anybody know Theodore Botris? We have Theodore Botris and Theodore Olson. This was George Bush's attorney. This was George Bush's attorney. So interesting. Some people say, well, the two parties are just one and the same. The plaintiffs and the Democrats are all the same. Well, here you have Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher, Theodore Olson representing CNN, which you would normally think Bush, Fox News, CNN, two totally different points of view. But here you have Ted Olson, the Bush lawyer, representing CNN. So that's politics for you folks. The Attorney Steve wrap-up, that's it. We'll keep an eye on this case to see if Jim gets his press credentials back. I assume he will. But, there needs to be some standards in these. I've watched some of these interviews and press conferences. There needs to be a little more, some ethics or professional obligations. People need to treat each other with a little more respect, I think. And that's for both parties. But, I think things are getting a little bit out of control. So I hope we'll see where this goes. I assume he's going to get his press credentials back before this case is decided by the jury. But we'll see, okay? So there's Attorney Steve Politics for the day. A little bit about the First Amendment and some contemporary news for you. If you like this video, give me that thumbs up. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Give me that thumbs up. Tell me you like what I'm doing. and that helps keep me going, okay? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We're pushing for 10,000 viewers. We're almost there. We're getting there. But I need a little more love out of you viewers, okay? Attorney Steve Vondran, you can find out more information about our legal services, civil litigation, copyright law at attorneysteve.com. That's attorneysteve.com, the first name in legal services. I got to run. Dinner's on the table. Have a good evening.